you can flip anything. And the reason that people don't flip more things is simply a lack of knowledge.
Because you could be axed, so to speak, at any moment. There is that real anxiety that, oh, what happens if I get reported on Facebook for being a scammer and all of a sudden my Facebook doesn't have access to Marketplace. And when you're buying things that people have an emotional attachment to, cars, video games, sports memorabilia, you name it, people are going to want a premium paid for their nostalgia. And what's really beneficial about selling couches is all of a sudden there is no encyclopedia or eBay sales report that shows you how much couches are worth, and people don't really have an emotional attachment to their couch.
After reflecting on our conversation a bit, I think the probably most important thing to come out of our chat is,
do you dream of being the undisputed top couch flipper in your market? Hard work alone won't get you there. The secret? Working smarter, not just harder. Enter Ivy Flip. You're listening to our podcast to get the cutting edge when it comes to tactics for running your flipping business. So why not also have the cutting edge when it comes to technology for your couch flipping empire? Ivy Flip has the best sourcing app for couch flippers in the world. With Ivy Flip, you won't have anxiety about missing a couch deal. We will work 24 hours a day to notify you as soon as the deals you're after are posted, meaning you'll get there before your competition and with a fraction of the effort. And right now, we are offering a 1-week free trial to new users. Try it out before it's too late. Just search Ivy Flip in the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store now, or click the link in bio.
all right, on this episode of The Couch Pod, we are joined by Brian Garvey of Gravy Flips on YouTube. He is a teacher, part-time flipper, and also obviously has his YouTube channel where he educates the masses on the benefits of flipping furniture, video games, and so on. Brian, if you'd like to touch on anything that I've missed, I'd love to, introduce you to our audience.
Yeah, I'm a traveler. I'm a Spanish teacher by trade. Traveled extensively throughout Latin America. Teachers have always needed to pay off student loans because, traditionally teaching isn't really a wealthy job or vocation to get into. So the majority of teachers I know have side gigs or summer jobs, and mine has been, in the early days, going to garage sales. Started off by flipping collections of Pokemon cards to pay off my student loans. This is like back in 2016. So it's been an interesting journey from being a young teacher with like $30,000 in student loans to being a full-time teacher and not even having a mortgage anymore because flipping has paid off all my debt. So having a side gig has really benefited my entire net worth and my possibilities as a human.
Muy interesante. No sé que tú estás un profesor de español.
Sí, mi esposa es colombiana y la conocí en Medellín, en Colombia, donde pasé un año enseñando inglés en la Universidad de la San Buenaventura.
Muy bien. I live in Mexico, vivo en México ahora. Yo tomo clases de español por 3 meses y ahora yo puedo hablar en tiempo presente. Tiempo pasado es muy difícil para mí.
El pasado, el pretérito y el imperfecto, sí, no son difíciles. El presente es más difícil, ¿sí? Qué bueno.
Sí, claro que sí. We might have to put some subtitles for that portion of the chat.
Yeah, dude. ChatGPT will help you.
Yeah, as I was saying, I've been living in Mexico for a little bit here. It's nice that the work that we're doing with Ivy Flip enables me to travel and work and run the company. I took company remote sometime in September. The past 6 months, I've just sort of been working abroad and traveling and so on and so forth.
That is brilliant. The fact that you can work and enjoy. I've seen in some of your channels that you flipped in Brazil. You were in Medellin at one time too, right? Or Bogota. And so you're getting to see these cool places that are secrets to the world. Like Medellin, Colombia is one of the best places to retire. You know how to stay safe. You know what I mean? And you're in Mexico right now. What part of Mexico are you in?
I'm in Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
It's hour south Cancun, hour north of Tulum. It's right in between the two. It's a pretty small town. Overall, it's about 300,000 people. And the nice thing about this area is that it's very compact, so you can walk literally from end to end. I usually ride a bike from one end of town to the other in about 15-20 minutes on a bike.
No, is there pretty good public transportation down there? Or
No. You don't need it. You really don't need it because it's so small.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I mean, riding on a bus in Latin America is an adventure in and of itself. You know what I mean? If you like roller coasters, getting on a bus in Colombia is definitely a fun way to get around town.
That's interesting. So you met your wife in Colombia, as you were saying in Spanish, and it sounds like you've spent some time traveling in Latin America. When in your life did that happen?
When I was a sophomore in college, my Spanish professor told me she didn't want to see me in Vermont anymore, that she wanted me to go study abroad. So I went and did a year in Salamanca, Spain, and absolutely loved it. Traveled throughout Europe. And then I came back, and she was like, you're not going to work at Price Chopper, during the summer of your junior year. And so she convinced me to go to Buenos Aires, where I worked for 4 months in an orphanage. Orphan teacher during the day, professional pool player at the night, you know what I mean? Just trying to keep that balance. It was a great trip. And And then when I graduated, I was applying for teaching positions, and I applied for a Fulbright. Somehow I managed to get a Fulbright scholarship grant to teach English at Columbia, and they chose the university and the city, so I just happened to get lucky and get landed in Medellin, which ended up being like the coolest place I've ever been in my life. It is one heck of a city.
So have you been back recently?
Last time I was there, I went to Cali, where my wife is from. We went 2 years ago. We had a toddler about 15 months ago, so we haven't really been wanting to travel with a baby, so to speak. So we may go back this summer. She might go down in just a little bit to see her family, but it's been about 2 years.
So that you met your wife in college. That's when you were basically down in Latin America. And how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 31, almost 32, and I met her when I was 22. I just graduated college, so yeah.
Congrats. It's been quite a while then.
Yeah, long time.
When you travel like that, it really shapes your perspective on like how to live life in a meaningful way and what's even possible. How do you think those travels have impacted you as, you've gone further down in your career as a teacher and then started to pursue side hustles? Like, how does that shape your mentality?
Yeah, when you travel, you kind of get to see what poverty looks like, and you kind of get to experience like a non-US centric way of thinking and a way of capitalism, particularly in Latin America, more so than Europe. You see people trying to make a living everywhere. You see whether it's someone selling things on the street, someone getting on the bus singing and hoping for donations, standing in front of the crosswalk at a red light when, everyone's waiting. They'll be doing like acrobatics in the trees trying to get some donations and stuff. Seeing what levels people will go to when they don't have the social subsidies that people can enjoy here in the United States, to see the real desperation that people sometimes need to go to. I had students in my college classes who would come to class with a small little box, and in there they'd have like chips and gum, and they'd be selling gum and chips during class or during the breaks just to pay for their bus fare to get home after class, So it kind of shows me that to not take the time that we have here, in the States, if you're born on this side of the pond, not to take that for granted and consume every hour watching Netflix and such forth, and to take advantage of the awesome opportunity that we have here in the States to be one of the lucky few that actually get to live here. Have you noticed something similar to that about the work ethic?
I think I had a lot of that perspective more so from growing up as, the child of a refugee. That was always somewhat ingrained in me. But the thing I've noticed about Latin America is there are some incredibly kind and talented people here that just don't have economic opportunity. And we're very fortunate that in the United States, if you take risks and if you're willing to apply yourself, that you can really build a concrete future for yourself and your family. Whereas that might be very difficult in a place like Mexico or Argentina right now, or Venezuela. Of course, there's a gradient of wealth in Latin America. Depends on like where you're born and where you're at as well. But in general, like we are very fortunate in the US. So like my dad was a refugee. He came to the US in 1981, actually escaped the genocide. At the time there was something like 8 million people in Cambodia before the start of the Cambodian genocide under Pol Pot. And then by 1979, about 3 million people had been eradicated from the planet. My dad was lucky in that most of his nuclear family got out unscathed. Well, not unscathed, psychologically at least, but physically they were okay. And then he came over to the US and started working right away. He's the oldest child. The rest of the children in the family got to go to school and go to college, etc. So that was, fortunate for them. But my dad's not like formally educated, but he's savvy. He's like sharp and he has like charisma. So inevitably got into business for himself, became an entrepreneur, and was selling counterfeit merchandise in Chinatown in New York City. And it's not glamorous work, but eventually he did quite well for himself. But the one thing about my dad was that he always worked hard. He never ever took for granted the opportunity. I remember growing up, he would tell me, like, don't complain about the food you have, right?
Yep,
just be thankful that you're not eating like grass or like rats. I don't think that really resonated with me until I got a little bit older, and I actually got a chance to visit Cambodia when I was like 22. And I remember stepping off the plane, and it's like a dirt tarmac, and we flew into Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia. And they're like, okay, we're here. And I look around, I'm like, where are we? Like, where's the airport? And then we get out of the airport, we get into the shuttle. The shuttle's taking us into the center of Phnom Penh. We're like driving. And then all of a sudden they say, we're here. And I look around, I'm like, where are we? Like, where's the city? Like, where's the capital? Because all around me, it was just kind of like dirt roads and like shacks almost. And so that was a very eye-opening experience to realize like, this is where my family came from. If I had been born here, this is the opportunity that would have been afforded to me. And, since then, I've really tried to make the most of that opportunity and also be able to create those opportunities for other people. I think that's a big part of my drive as an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you're a first-generation immigrant child, right? So you've had to deal with the experiences of being the son of immigrants who may not speak English as their native language, I'm assuming not, right? And then going through the school system, living the bilingual life, understanding the challenges that come with literacy and educational issues. How was that for you going through like K through 12 and then through college college, having intercultural differences and being multilingual? How was that for you?
Well, I was very fortunate in that, so my mom's Korean, and Korean and Cambodian culture is very different.
So you have like do you speak 3 languages? 4?
I would say, yeah, like 4 or 5 at this point.
Gee, wow.
Speak a little bit of Spanish, speak a little Portuguese. I speak Korean and Ducho. Ducho is a southeastern Asian dialect of Chinese spoken in Cambodia, because there is a Chinese population in Cambodia. They kind of, stick to themselves. I don't speak Khmer, which is Cambodian in essence. So yeah, but those languages I grew up speaking because they just spoke it at me. I didn't have to learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like my mom is Korean, and the thing about Korean culture, they highly prioritize education. Kind of culturally known for having tiger moms, which is exactly what my mom was. And that was very challenging for me growing up, because, the pressure to succeed within the educational system at the expense of all other aspects of life, which are valuable for a child to learn and grow up. But
like a shame aspect to it, like if you didn't do well, you'd be doing bad for the family kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely that kind of thing. But the only thing that mattered, right, in terms of what I did was like get good grades, do well in school. And I was also a terrible student, believe it or not. Like, I was just not very good at school. Like, I found it very difficult to sit there, and I think I have an anti-authoritarian streak, definitely.
Yep.
The fortunate thing is that I was very blessed to be educated. So, there was a lot of investment put into me as a child, and that has enabled me to go and, pursue other things in my life with success. But I think the main point I want to make here is that, when my dad came to the U.S., 1980s, 40 years ago, the opportunity in America was different. Arguably better, right? There was just more opportunity. Like, you could work a job, work there 40 years, 50 years, same company, retire with your 401k, maybe a pension, you buy a house, that house appreciates in value, and you can be very comfortable. That's the American dream, the white picket fence. I don't think the American dream really exists in that sense anymore in our country. But it's not that there is no opportunity, because you just, go to Latin America, you go to Cambodia, and you look around and you can see the stark difference in opportunity, and it gives you an appreciation for what opportunity really is. Nowadays, I think the opportunity is in entrepreneurship. It's in having a side hustle. It's, figuring out how to be your own boss and get better leverage for your time than just an hourly rate. And, that's why, we got into this market, trying to support flippers with tools that make their lives easier and help them make more money so that they can have this financial independence and, spend more time with their families. And I think that's also what's great about this market, it's giving people a chance to extract themselves from the confines of a 9-to-5 and really get ahead instead of living paycheck to. Probably enough about me, though. I'd love to turn the attention to how you're finding that balance, because you have your 9-to-5 and you have your side hustle. You have 2 side hustles, arguably. You're creating content as well. You have a family. So how do you balance all of your various responsibilities? How do you manage your time? And hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I'm fortunate to be a teacher. A lot of people, they look down on the profession and they see it as a low paying way to spend your time. I grew up with a single mom in a trailer park. My parents were divorced. Neither of my parents went to college for more than a semester. So being a teacher for me and earning at least $40,000 was something to look up to. My mom, very thankful for hard work. She's been a cashier for almost 30 years and worked very hard to support me and get us through where we needed to. Me going to college was really the result of her moving from Virginia, where the education system is very different than it is here in Vermont, to a state in the Northeast that actually has a pretty high per pupil rate. And I got a pretty good education here at one of the higher income areas in Vermont. Even though I was living in the trailer park, I was kind of like not the swear, but the bastard student in a speak. You know what I mean? I just didn't belong with all these kids who had Audis and Mercedes in the school parking lot. You know what I mean? I didn't even have a car until after I was 18, right? My time management really came in when I was in high school, because instead of doing sports like a lot of my friends would, I chose to work from the age of 15. And when I said I would work, I mean, I would work 15, 16 at a local grocery store, and I'd work 30 hours a week on top of doing high school. And I think that was actually one of the best training times of my life, because I was working and studying 70 to 80 hours a week. And at the time, you don't realize it, that high school is kind of one of the hardest times of your life if you're working. But sports are also another place that people spend or consume their time. I just chose to do it in a way that built work ethic for vocational purposes, right? So ever since high school, I've always had this internal, I don't know, this is internal clicking to just want to work. Going on to college, I was the same way with my studies for Spanish and trying to be a Spanish teacher. I guess it was kind of like working from a deficit mindset. When you come from not having the resources to pay pay for college, you kind of tend to have like a deficit mindset. It's not something good to have, but it helps to motivate you because you're like not wanting to go back to where you came from, if that makes any sense. So I guess from like when I was 15, I've just always had this internal drive to just, be better, be better, be better. It'll eat you up, but it also motivates you to be something more than just getting to be a Spanish teacher and stopping. You know what I mean? After I got to being a Spanish teacher, I started learning about garage sales and watched YouTube and started reading Dave Ramsey's books. And then I got to Robert Kiyosaki. And before you know it, all of a sudden this ambition goes to, oh crap, I want to pay off my debt. And then here we go.
When did you discover your side hustle of flipping?
The earliest time I did it was 2010. I remember sitting on my dad's porch right when I turned 18. It was like July 29th, right after I turned 18. I had old Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I had from a kid, and I had some old Pokemon cards. And I was sitting on his porch taking pictures of them and trying to figure out how to use eBay. And this is back when you'd have to use a stamp in an envelope and send them off that way. So I actually started selling on eBay by reselling Pokemon card collections that I would buy on Craigslist back in the day because Facebook Marketplace wasn't a thing. And oh boy, if it were, oh my God, that would have changed my whole trajectory for life. But yeah, it was starting to realize that I can go to Craigslist and buy collections and then throw them on eBay and make a couple extra $100 while I'm at college,
It's a little bit of a rags to riches story. Maybe it's still a work in progress, but you really built yourself up from nothing through hard work. Nothing was handed to you. So how are you doing nowadays?
I'm doing, fast forward 10 years. Nowadays, my wife and I, we had a single family residence that we paid off and we converted to being a rental. And before COVID, we bought a duplex that we've since paid off. We live in the bottom floor. We've built up a pretty substantial net worth by paying off our debt and snowballing all the money that we've made from selling literally over 42,000 transactions on eBay, video games and such forth, into, building rental properties and investing in the business. And has kind of been one of changing and transitioning to the times, right? It goes from Pokemon cards on Craigslist to figuring out in 2016 that garage sales were a thing, you know what I mean? And that Goodwill, you could go to a Goodwill, you could buy something for $2 and like a mason jar opener and you could sell it 20. And how that transitioned to finding a niche. Talk about my biggest transition point for a sec. So my biggest transition point was we were living off my income because my wife, we were still waiting for her immigration paperwork to come through. And during the time where you're at the adjustment of status, you can't work. She couldn't work. So we were living off of my income, right? But she would help me go, source things at Goodwill and at the garage sales and stuff, which is a great way to, get through that time where we were living on just one income. But there was this one day where I saw on Craigslist, or it was Facebook Marketplace, I think it was Craigslist. It was back in 2016 that a guy posted a huge inventory. It was like a reseller inventory and he wanted $1,500 for all this stuff that he had been reselling. Heinsberg firm. And I talked him down. There were about 100 PS2 games. And this is back in 2016, 2017, where the video games weren't like gold, basically. I bought that from him and he gave me everything that he had, all the way down to the thermal printer. And I had never heard of a Rollo before. And so buying this huge inventory, he showed me how to use a Rollo. And as soon as I figured out what a thermal label printer was, it was like a click going off.
Wait, just sorry to interrupt, but just for our audience, could you explain what a Rollo is and what a thermal printer is, the significance of these items?
Yeah, my wife and I, when we would ship things, we used to print each page, cut it out, tape the shipping label on, and we found a way, without even knowing it, we found this machine that made our time super efficient. And at the click of a button, we could print off 50 labels that were burned onto this sticker, and we just go zoop, you just peel it off, a 4x6 label, and you put it right on that mailer. And a 4-hour cut and stick process turned into about 15 seconds. There's no exaggeration with that. And discovering thermal labels then, it changed my entire trajectory for the side hustle. And buying that big inventory also gave me the cojones, so we'll say, to start buying other big collections, because I was finally taking that step to realize, yeah, $1,200, $1,500 is a lot of money to be spending when you're living on one teacher income, right? Like that was a significant amount of my income. And I took that step. And then we made like $3,000-$4,000 off the whole thing. But the biggest moment of madness for me was I realized how truly valuable and resellable video games were. They're easy to store, they're lightweight, they're quick sellers, and that was like probably a $1,500 portion of the profit. So it was that purchase right there that kind of was the catalyst to almost like stalking Facebook Marketplace to buy every video game collection I could from here to Boston. And selling 5 or 6 things a weekend turned into, we'd have 140 items going out on Mondays all of a sudden, and it ballooned into over 42,000 sales over the next 6-7 years. Quite substantial.
So it's about 9,000 sales a year over 6 years, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because we've really slowed down over the past year and a half on eBay because like COVID, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but COVID has kind of changed everything. And Charles, I admire the prodigious thinking, so to speak, that Ivy Flips has, because you guys are realizing there is a change. You know, video games back in 2017, 2018 were a fantastic market, right? You could pick up 6-7 collections every day, spend very little money, and make some serious cash. There was one year that my eBay sales was $420,000 gross sales. It was crazy. I had to do a balance sheet for the first time for the IRS, right? Because if you sell over $250,000, you have to have a balance sheet. But because I was doing the cash method, that $420,000 in gross profit was more around like $80,000 net profit. And please, my business terminology, I'm more of a practitioner than an expert when it comes to tax and everything. So if I get any of these terms wrong, just let me know. But what I put on my tax report was that 420 was actually only about $80,000 profit, which was more than I made as a teacher that year. It was all part-time in the summers. It was rather life-changing, you know? But since then, since 2021, 2022, the market has changed. I don't know if you've kept up with video game resellers specifically on YouTube, but there's a couple big guys like Phoenix Resale, Chase After the Right Price. I'm sure you've at least heard of these names. They're the behemoths of the market, and with fame, they've also started a whole new obsession, and the people who are just now getting to the party are way too late. That market's done. You can't touch it. Now, the people who were in video games in 2018 that are willing to change are seeing that transgression and applying those transferable skills that they learned from flipping, buying, and selling video games to things that everybody needs, right? The buying and selling and making money was a transferable skill, as we say in the teaching world, right? To now, I personally am I have fallen in love with couches because nobody really is. I think I'm the only person in the state of Vermont that's doing. You know what I'm saying? The supply is there, the demand is there. So the fact that Ivy Flip is, you've seen that, and I've been trying on my Gravy Flips channel to encourage people to get out there to sell one dresser per day for $70, because if they do that, their income will go up $25,000, right? That was my mantra for like 6 months ago. And I'd noticed that whenever I post on my video, because Gravy Flips is really like a video game channel, right? People don't want to see furniture flipping. They don't want to see it. And I've put surveys on my YouTube channel. I was trying to get people to see the fact that, like, if they sold, $130 or $150 a day in furniture, on their birthday, on their mom's birthday, you know what I mean? Just every day, $150. It's like $50,000 extra per year. And if you're crazy, and I say crazy in a good way, if you're sadistic and you have that, like, I want to push myself, $250 a day, which is like one couch a day, literally is $92,000. And the school district I used to teach in, $92,000 wasn't even a salary on the pay scale. So just let that sink in. And that was my mantra, but people just didn't want to hear it. People are more obsessed with you found a Pokemon White 2 at a game collection, and then like, I've got my whole basement's full of video game stuff, and like, I got this rare Neo Geo game that's worth $300 for, $150. But when everybody knows the value of this game, this is a $150 to $200 game, right? When everybody wants to sell it to you for $120, do you really want to spend $120 on this to make $30 and then have to deal with returns, eBay fees? You know what I'm saying? Like, what really got me onto couches was like the cost per sale, the profit per sale. And I know that's something that you probably want to talk about, but go ahead. Sorry, you got me started there.
No. There's a lot of interesting things to dig into here. So it sounds like the reason the video game market has changed is that there's an influx of people who are now interested in flipping video games. And that has also decreased the arbitrage opportunity, because obviously to make money flipping, you need to buy low and sell high. And if there are more people competing for the deals, then demand goes up, prices also go up. And so you can't buy as low. And because people are more aware of like what the price floor and what the price ceiling is, maybe it's harder to sell high. And then it becomes really a volume and efficiency game. So in contrast to selling couches where you can flip a single couch for a couple $100 profit, you would have to sell, dozens of video games to achieve the same thing. But if you are operationally efficient, you know how to source at scale, you know how to process and pack all of those video games at scale, then yeah, you can definitely still make good money doing it. But it's hard to get into a position where you're able to do that when there are already people that are so efficient at this ahead of you. And so that window of opportunity is somewhat less for someone trying to get into video games today. It also sounds like the people following you on your channel or people who are interested in the video game flipping niche in general, maybe they're not practitioners and there's sort of a hobbyism there or a consumerism there where they're interested in like the lore and they're interested in the video games in general as opposed to figuring out how I'm going to make money doing this thing.
Yeah, you're right there with the whole idea about hobbyism. When you're buying a video game collection, you're not just buying, with a business mindset, you start to see video games as like, oh, I might have loved this game as a kid, but this is a product. Idea of this being a product can be transferred to any profit, whether it's a t-shirt, a couch, a dresser. And when you're buying things that people have an emotional attachment to, cars, video games, sports memorabilia, you name it, people are going to want a premium paid for their nostalgia. And what's really beneficial about selling couches is all of a sudden there is no encyclopedia or eBay sales report that shows you how much couches are worth, and people don't really have an emotional attachment to their couch. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten a lot of free couches from people. I've paid for a lot of couches. I've never heard someone say, oh my gosh, I can't let this thing go. You know what I mean? No one has ever said that. So the emotional piece all of a sudden is gone with furniture. There might be some like random, oh, that was my grandmother's, 3rd century dresser or whatever, 13th century dresser, whatever. If that's the case, I move on. But couches, they allow you to use those same buying and selling skills that you had for video games, but they open a new world. And that new world is you don't have to sell 30 video games to make $300. Now you can just sell one couch to make $300. And I've tried to help my viewers on Gravy Flips realize that. And for the business-oriented people on there, to really see, you get a few people that really like to hear about that arbitrage opportunity, about the fact that, you could spend an hour driving to get this video game collection that you find maybe once a week, or you could use that hour to drive to get a couch. That's a 1-unit sale that's going to bring you the same amount of profit, but you don't have to deal with the 30 returns. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's very little risk. It's happened once that I've gone to deliver a couch to somebody and they've turned it away. Once. And I've sold a ton of pieces of furniture. You know what I'm saying?
A couple interesting things about this market. So, in contrast to flipping video games or cell phones or cars, part of the reason why there is an arbitrage opportunity with couch flipping is that consumers generally don't know what the value of a couch is.
Yes.
So, oftentimes they don't even know, the manufacturer, the model of the couch that they have. Maybe they bought it used or they inherited it somehow. And certainly when they're looking on Marketplace, they don't know what the value of a couch is, because your average consumer maybe buys a couple couches in their lifetime, whereas a couch flipper buys and sells, 5 couches a week. And so couch flippers are able to use that knowledge to understand what a good deal is. So that's part of it. Even if you know nothing about cars, even if you know nothing about video games or iPhones, you can go to Kelley Blue Book and figure out the value of your car. You can go on eBay and look up the value of a video game. And, it's like that exact title in that exact condition. How much is it selling for? You can get a sense of what the price should be. That doesn't exist for couches. Even if you, oftentimes you don't even know who made the couch, and you try to feed it into Google Lens to try and figure out what the retail value was. And, that's only sometimes, so in some cases are you able to do that. So I think that's part of the reason why there's a unique arbitrage opportunity with couches. The other thing is that it's a big bulky item. So when you have things that can be shipped, a lot of the things that are on eBay are obviously things that can be shipped. It allows you to scale at it in a different way than you're able to scale in the flipping of big bulky items, because you can acquire inventory from anywhere. You can, buy it online, you can buy it locally, and then you can ship it nationally, internationally, what have you. And so your competitors for sourcing and selling are on a national or international scale. Whereas when it comes to big bulky items, you got to go pick up the thing. You can't ship a couch once it's out of the box. Not really, right? And you're probably going to sell that couch locally too. And so it really depends on the local conditions, the local competitors for whatever item you're flipping. And that tends to be a much smaller market, right? Because if you're selling video games, then you're going up against the Phoenix resells of the world who have been doing this for 10 years and, ship hundreds of thousands of items every year. That's your competition. Whereas if you look locally, maybe it's like one or two other guys and, they have a nice little flipping hustle. They sell 5 or 10 couches a month or a week, but that's about it. So yeah, couch is very interesting, but I think with anything, the timing of things is very important as an entrepreneur. So, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, there was a great opportunity with video games. And now, 5-10 years later, the opportunity is different. I think the opportunity for couches is right now. There is the formation of an industry happening. It's very interesting. So, 5 years ago, people were just side hustling, selling couches. And you fast forward to today, people are building legitimate businesses out of their couch flipping hustle. They're incorporating. They have like a brick and mortar storefront and warehouse. They have a brand. They're marketing themselves. They're building a relationship with their community, and they're providing a very valuable service. People all over the US and Canada, they move frequently. They have big bulky items they need to get out of their house, and they just don't have a good method to, deal with it. They, can haul it to the dump themselves. They can pay a junk removal company. They can try to donate it. The nonprofit that they donate to will charge them a haul away fee. Whereas a couch flipper can come in, maybe give them money for their couch, recoup some of the value, but most importantly, provide a service, which is, get that thing out of there. And then help the next person reclaim the value that is still in this couch and allow them to get quality furniture at a decent price. It's an extremely valuable service. I think the change that we're going to see in the couch flipping industry in the years to come is that couch flippers are going to start figuring out how to flip other things. One of my predictions, but also an interesting thing about flipping in general, is you can flip anything. And the reason that people don't flip more things is simply a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge it's a combination of not knowing what to flip. So like there's an information gap, and also it's about leverage for time. Mm-hmm. So even if you could make money flipping something, sometimes it's not worth the time and energy that you'd put into flipping that thing. So, oftentimes as a couch flipper, you walk into someone's house, they're moving out, and you're going to go pick up that sofa, but they also have like a brand name kitchen table, or cabinets that they're willing to part with. And in fact, they'll give it to you for free. And couch flippers will turn that down because they're hyper focused on couches, because they know if I pick up this sectional for $200, I can go list it for $800. I've done it before. I've talked to other people in the community. They've done this exact thing before. But this West Elm table, I just don't know. I've never sold one before. In reality, like that table retails at $4,000 and they could get it for free. It should be a no-brainer. And so I think the conversation that's happening in communities, on podcasts like this, help inform people about opportunities in adjacent markets. And once you have the core flipping skill set down, which is really just running a business, you can take that and apply it to anything. And so I think the opportunity in flipping in general is so great, and it's up to people to more creative in figuring out what they can be flipping in order to create those opportunities for themselves.
Just to connect to what you said, people really are opportunists, right? If there's a hole in the market, right, naturally people are going to fill it, right? I've noticed in my time teaching, I've taught at the high school level for 6 years. Now I'm in a middle school, but I've personally seen that there really aren't classes or any proficiencies or standards for business mindsets or entrepreneurial skills. Right? We, as teachers, and this is one of the biggest areas where I'd love to see the world change, we say that we're preparing our students to be ready members of society, right? But living in a capitalistic society, we really are not teaching our kids financial skills. I've never heard the word Dave Ramsey or any of the books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Four Square Quadrant, Total Money Makeover, Everyday Millionaires. I've never heard any of these books being mentioned in everyday English classes in Vermont, at least, to inspire kids to get out there, to have a desire to do something that isn't college focused, right? We have trade schools that offer business, but it's more of like just a generic idea of here's how you make a business plan, here's what a loan looks like. It's nothing really geared toward like, how do I get into marketing? Like how can I have an idea? How can I buy low, sell high? Like how can I create value? And the creation of value is really the skill that I think it would transcend all lessons if I went into a school and was like, here is how you can create value and create money. And when I tell kids about, buying video games, and they all love video games, right? I ran the video game club at my school, and we'd always talk about that. We'd talk about collections I bought, but they'd be so fascinated to hear, wait, what? You bought this collection for how much? And you're going to sell all these pieces and then you're going to keep the ones that you want? What? You know what I mean? The kids were fascinated. But what I think is great about YouTube and where the video game sellers teachers are probably heading, like you said, is that people are going to be taking that genuine interest in buying and selling video games and seeing how it can build their collection and make money to, oh, if I tell someone that I'll pick up, if I buy this couch and I flip it for $300, well, wait a second, I can use that $300 from that couch to pay for that vintage graded video game that I want. And one of the funniest ideas I had on my YouTube channel was what I was going to call the Ocarina of Time Odyssey. And the goal was to see how long it would take me to sell furniture that I get for free, like literally out of this one storage unit that I had, to pay for this, like, I don't know if you know video games, if you're nerdy like me, but to buy this vintage collector's edition N64 Ocarina of Time sealed and graded for like $7,500. And I was so excited to do it because I was going to flip like dressers, nightstands, washers, dryers, everything, just to help people see the correlation between like business skills and getting what you want, right? I did the video, I did like 2 episodes, and it got like 20 views. So I was like, well, ROI for time, people don't really want to hear about like reselling furniture. So I'm at a loss for like how to improve this market. But dude, I can totally see what you're trying to do with Ivy Flip, and you can cut all this part of too if it's not relevant. But like, hopefully you as this brilliant entrepreneur who's created a fantastic application, which if you want to talk about later, I've had some really good success for it in 4 days that I've been using it, trying to build this market. I've seen your subscribers go up like a few notches every day, which is awesome. You're able to gain interest in a field that I've been trying to for like almost a year now, and I gave up on that.
I'm curious to hear like how using Ivy Flip has gone for you.
Yeah, so I am in Vermont, and Vermont is very small. So I was very appreciative that you, on your website, I didn't know it. When I first downloaded it, do you mind if I talk, just be honest here? I was like, I saw there was a pretty high price tag for 4 searches, and I was like, whoa, $400 a month, that's a lot. I didn't take the time. That being at the top didn't even give me the incentive to scroll down to see if there were any other plans. It wasn't until that I got the message from you via text. I don't know how that worked, but we ended up texting each other, and I found out that you had a 2 search plan that was like $150, right? And I was like, well, do I want to spend $100 to try this? The guy seems to know what he's talking about. I downloaded it. Well, it was a Thursday, right? And I actually, it was like a Thursday night. I got home that Friday, or it might even have been that Friday. It was like within 24 hours, I set up my search, and I was getting bombarded with like those fake ones that you get all the time because I live like an hour and a half from Montreal. And the settings go from like 40 to 100 mile radius. There's no 70, 60, which would really benefit me because Montreal, dude, oh my God, I get bombarded and I can't go over across the border to get couches. It gets complicated. I don't know. But literally within like probably 15 minutes of me turning it on, just being in the bathroom doing my business, I found a Pier 1 sectional that goes on the patio, and it just popped up within like 15, 20 minutes. Scheduled to go get it that Saturday morning, and I flipped it yesterday for $250. And then that Sunday, I picked up a couch I was already going to get one, and I got the notification. I ended up picking up another couch on my way home. So you made me another $400 there. So I've been using it for 5 days, and I've got, around $550 in profit just from that $100 that I spent with you. And let me tell you something. It's really intimidating to somebody who's on a low, like a teaching income, to spend $100, $200, $300, $400 a month on something. However, it's important to realize that A, you can write it off as an expense for the business, right? B, the opportunity is there. My wife doesn't have to sit around watching the computer as much anymore, right? I don't have to be scrolling. There's no anxiety about missing an opportunity. Yeah, I get bombarded with a bunch of scammers. I'm trying to figure out how to use some of the black wording to where you can get rid of, like, I've tried changing the search categories to get rid of all the new ones, because like all the new ones they're all just scammers, So that $100 investment turned into around $550. I'm really appreciative about that. And I only have 2 searches going. I have like let me see, hang on. Let me grab my phone. My search is sectional couch, and then the other one is sofa. I'm still wondering, I think I might need like a crash course video in like how the search terms work. Like if I have sectional couch sofa, is it only going to show me someone who types in sectional couch sofa in that order? Or is it going to show me all 3 of those words? So can I put that sofa one that I have up into that first one to save my searches? You see what I'm saying here? And then how to optimize that search. So I'm still learning with that. I think my learning curve is going to get a lot better, and I'm going to be a millionaire because of this.
There you go. Well, it's pretty good ROI for just a couple days, and I'm glad to hear about your experience. It's been positive so far. That's really what we're here to do with the technology. We think it can help you reclaim time in your day, make you more efficient, give you a slight leg up in getting to deals before your competition. And we have an entire suite of products that we're building out, some already available to our customers, like our cross-listing tool, which allows you to list on multiple marketplaces, the click of a button.
That's that sectional that I got right there. You can see Ivy Flips like going up in the background.
There you go.
Oh no! Hold up. I was mistaken. I got a third couch because of Ivy Flip. And that one I'm scheduled to sell. So this couch right here was posted on Facebook Marketplace on Sunday. That's right. I picked one up on Saturday. It was like a 6-piece modular one that has an ottoman too. And it took us like maybe 10 minutes to clean it up. But that one I'm already scheduled to sell for $400 on Friday. Today we had a big snowstorm. But the better part is that I also offer to take their couch for an additional $100, like their old one. And I live right next to a dump. And it cost me like $40 to bring their old sectional if it's 2 pieces. $24 per piece. And if it's a single piece, it's only $24. So because of that extra service, I'll just roll it into the Ivy Flips gravy, so to speak, hence Gravy Flips. So really, if you add the $550 to the $475, it's closer to like $1,100. I'd have to run the numbers on that, but yeah. So $100 for $1,100 non-realized profit. Like this is all, it's scheduled to be sold, but I've got enough experience in the game to know that these couches will sell for $300 to $400 a piece. So
$1,200, 5 days. Hard to beat that. Probably couldn't do it with video games.
So let me tell you a little bit about video games. I started a Facebook page, and this is real advice. This is like me trying to be as in front of the curve as I could. I even made like a 30-page guide that I was selling on my YouTube channel for like $12. I ended up getting rid of it because I only sold a few. But I made a Facebook page, a business page. I really learned how to use Facebook ads. Okay. And I'm all about learning. Teachers, they're just natural learners, right? We are always trying to be, it's a good growth mindset thing to get into, right? I'm thankful for that. Learned a lot. I learned how to use Facebook ads. I've watched probably 10 hours of YouTube videos on how to use Facebook ads. I learned how to create advanced ads. I would use Canva to make really captivating, really targeted ads. I would go into the advanced settings on Facebook ads to really choose exactly what kind of demographic, what kind of geography, where I wanted to target people within like a 50-mile radius of a certain specific spot where I've had success before. I'd run different ads to different places. I'd even go interstate to New York, which is like a 30-minute drive away if you go over Lake Champlain. I was really dotting my I's and crossing the T's, right? Last year I spent over $5,000 on Facebook ads. And the type of ads I'd run were, hey, I'm a local teacher, I own a business, an LLC, I'm paying up to 50% price charting values for video game collections. Okay. I'd run a campaign. One time I got incredibly lucky. There was a guy responded to me within like 3 hours of the ad coming out. Crazy collection. I normally ask, how much are you looking to get? And if they say like $200, I'm not going to like argue up, right? And the dude had an amazing PS2 Dreamcast collection. I was looking to make maybe $700 on that, right? So I had spent $100 in ads, bought it for $200. I netted what, $600 there? Yeah. So, but then from that $600, I had to take pictures of everything. I had to ship it, returns. So in all, I made probably around $475 to $500. Then I had to pay tax on top of that. So it was really like $400. That didn't happen all the time. And I have a Google spreadsheet where I have all my pickups, right? The places I drive, the mountains I'd cross, the countries I'd go to. It was really the supply for me to resell. It was almost a luck factor. Does that make sense? There just wasn't enough gravy to have a consistent full-time basis, right? So I'd spend about $400, $450 a month in ads. And over the past year, this is within the past like 2 years, the market is so saturated. And again, I'm the only person in Vermont that's paying those kind of ads, right? Everybody else is doing like the cheap Facebook Marketplace, like selling video games, but underneath they have this message that says, I'm buying, that nobody was paying for ads at the amount that I was. And I know this because I haven't seen any of them. And I got into flipping couches and I can't remember what it was. I've loved the fact that they've just been such a consistent, easy to get, low stress, ubiquitous. I think the ubiquitous nature, for people who don't know what ubiquitous means, comes from the Latin word ubi, which means everywhere, right? Language teacher nerd. They are everywhere. Everybody needs a couch, but not everybody needs a video game. One of the craziest things I would do to source video games was I would go, it's embarrassing to say this, but I had luck doing it. And this is such an advanced method that I'd type in my town into Facebook Marketplace and I would see people selling like kids' toys. And I would send them a message saying, oh, hey, I really like this toy, but wondering if you had any video games that you're selling. And I would spam like maybe 40 or 50 people. And it sounds really, really like asinine to just message people who are selling kids' toys, DVDs. But I had a couple hits in like 2 months that I did that. One person had a collection that I was able to buy for like $300 that had around $1,200 in value, but I'm a video game collector myself and I ended up keeping some of the bigger pieces in that. So like, yeah, that one time I got lucky, but with video games, it's really gotten to the point where you have to hit the lottery to do well. and you're not going to hit the lottery every day. And spending ad money, $5,000 a year, like $400 a month on ads to not get anything, I was really making the money from the couches that I was picking up while I was waiting for the video game sales to be messaged to me. In fact, today, a guy messaged me who I bought from like 2 years ago, and he's like, hey, do you still sell video games? And the dude had like 2 Wii consoles, a Rock Band set, and one of those old Ottomans for the Wii, and I was in like maybe 20 games. None of them are anything more than a $25 game. And I was like, well, how much do you want for it? And he said $500. I was like, I messaged him back and I said, this is why I don't buy video games anymore, because people want more than retail. And I literally said that to him. I can show you the message right now. It's just,
The game has definitely changed. And I think this is, it's bound to happen in couch flipping too. I think the opportunity to get in and make...
Literally, no joke right there, $500. Can you read that? Maybe not. Yeah. So, I don't know, man.
What I'm noticing is people who are getting into furniture flipping now, like especially some of these younger guys, they're getting in and they come in with a plan and a vision, and maybe they've done some research, they've been watching, videos like ours, this channel, they're following along the community, and they can see what's possible. And they're taking it very seriously, and they want to elevate it beyond just a side hustle. They have an ambition to create an entire business, if not an empire for themselves. And, they're getting into the markets, they're accelerating very quickly, and they're sort of blowing past their competition, the guys who are just, looking for an extra buck. Mm-hmm. And they're establishing themselves within their markets. And in every major metropolitan area, any town with a population over 100,000 can support a lucrative couch flipping business. And they're becoming known in their community. And that's what you want. Eventually, people should know in your city, hey, you have a used couch, there's a way to get rid of it. Or if you want to buy used furniture, there's someone I can buy it from. And it allows them to become self-sufficient from Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook Marketplace is the wedge. It's the low barrier to entry. It's what makes couch flipping low barrier to entry and allows you to start standing on your own 2 feet. But the goal is to stand on your own 2 feet. It's to build a business. And so right now is the opportunity. And, in some markets, there are already these sort of larger players emerging, but nothing that I've seen in terms of like total dominance such that there's no opportunity for other people. But, in 5 years, who knows what the opportunity is going to look like, but it's not going to look the same. That's for certain.
Yep.
And in fact, I think there's this entire ecosystem of couch flippers that are emerging. So I know flippers now where they do all of their sourcing from other flippers. So like they stop doing pickups of individual couches themselves and they just buy wholesale from other flippers, and vice versa. I know flippers where all they do is focus on sourcing and picking up couches, and then they sell it wholesale or close to retail to other flippers, and maybe they just keep the best items for themselves. So all in all, I think there's plenty of opportunity. People getting in the market is actually net good overall for flippers, insofar as you find a way to collaborate instead of just straight up compete with each other.
So you mentioned like it's important for people to eventually make a business out of it, and I do agree with that. That is the end goal. I just also want to throw out there that for young people who are in a people profession that may not pay much, I'm talking about like counselors, social workers, God forbid you study like puppetry. Dave Ramsey always says like left-handed puppetry, music, teaching is a perfect example. You don't necessarily have to have the end goal of making like Fortune 500 company, right? There's plenty of space for people who want to get in there and just have it as a side gig that they can do to earn a few extra $1,000s a month. It is okay to have your 5-year plan to be, hey, I'm going to work full time and flip maybe 5 couches a month and make $300 a piece because that'll pay my mortgage, right? Or that'll pay off the 2 couches a month that'll pay off my student loan payment. On my channel on Gravy Flips, I say it every time that the end goal for people who watch my channel is to drool over video game collections. I love that. I love the good nostalgic drool. Even more so important is to learn business skills, to learn how to buy low, sell high, to learn values. But the most important thing for me is for people to be inspired to be out there and like be the best person they can be and to not have debt, like to find the skills and the motivation to like pay off their debt. I know it sounds really like Dave Ramsey, but paying off your debt frees you both like mentally. I'm not very spiritual, but like it's a different spark that you have in your morning when you know that you don't have a mortgage payment, right? It's a different spark to your day knowing, oh, if I get fired tomorrow, I don't have to worry about a bank coming to get my car because, oh yeah, I sold 5 couches a week for 6 years and I paid off all my debt. You know what I mean? There's definitely a relational aspect to inspiring people to get out there and sell couches. And yeah, for the crazies, for the people that want to like just go hard, man, Yeah, do it. 50 couches a month? That sounds like a lot, but it's really 2 a day, right? Do it. You can do it, dude. You got to buy 2 a day. You got to sell 2 a day. Do that. $600 a day. What is that? That's a ton of money. Do the math. 600 times 365, but you don't have to get to that point to do it. One a week is $1,000 a month, like I say that $250 to $300 price point because that's my average profit per couch sold. I've seen all your podcasts, and people who live in more metropolitan areas, they're able to get like $1,500 flips. I'm just like, there isn't a person in Vermont that would spend more than $750 on a used couch. And I know this because I've tried every price point I can for the past 2 years. So maybe people in rural towns might have to focus more on that like $200 to $300 price point, like profit point. There's a term for that. What is it? It's your profit per good. Is that profit per sale?
Yeah, I would say profit per flip, something like that.
Per flip. Yeah. So you start to see the world through like flips. You want to buy a new trailer and you're like, oh, it's a $6,000 enclosed trailer. How many $300 couches is that? Oh, that's 20 couches. That's not that bad. I can do that in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So when couches start to become a currency, that's how you know that you're doing things right.
So I agree with aspects of what you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying. I do want to draw out some nuance here. Absolutely nothing wrong with flipping couches as a side hustle because there's an opportunity to do so, keep your full-time job, bring in some extra income, use that to pay off your debts. These are all good aspirational things. But you shouldn't expect that you can continue to do that forever because if you're riding the wave comes down, you're going to come down with it. So if you want longevity in the game, then you have to be ahead of the wave a little bit. You have to be creating the wave. You have to be creating the market in a way. And so that's what I mean by, there are these young, hungry guys that are getting into the market today and they're really gunning for it because they want to build that empire. They want to build that business. They want to build that legacy for themselves. They see the opportunity and they're taking hold of it. And you saw this in the video game market. Lots of people have come in and come out trying to make money flipping video games, but it's the ones that got ahead of the curve and really built big businesses for themselves that even with the amount of competition today, they're still making good money. If you want that longevity, you have to build that foundation and you have to do it when the going is good because when the going is bad, it's going to be much, much harder. And so, 5-6 years from now, maybe you can't build that couch flipping empire, but today you certainly can.
Right. I've had success, like trying to stay ahead of that curve. I've used a lot of the suggestions that fellow podcasters on the Ivy Flip podcast have had, like starting a Facebook page. That helps. You get kind of random messages in every once in a while, but I've had some secret success that's amounted to like maybe 5 or 6 extra couches per month, like grassroots marketing. That's come from Facebook Marketplace ads, has kind of worked. But what's really been working for me is I went to Vistaprint. This is good advice for somebody who's trying to get into like a rural area, okay? There might be a few, but there's not very many used furniture businesses in Vermont or in rural areas. Most of them are antiques, right? So I've established a network with like the Ashley Furniture store around me. I gave my business cards to a few big time furniture stores, and I advertise my service as a free furniture pickup. Like I don't really specify. I'm open to anything. All they have to do is just send me a picture of what they have, and I can give them a quick yeah or nay, right? I've still kept my interest open to other furniture and not just couches, right? Couches are a good, fantastic flip. But if you keep your interest open to like dressers, I don't do mattresses, I don't do bed frames, but like washer dryer sets, dressers, nightstands, kitchen table sets, and I've seen you talk about this before with other podcasters. Anything that'll net you about $150 in gross or about $150 profit if you can drive and get it is a fair rate for me anyway. So having my business cards in with them, a couple realtors I know, property managers, actually the guy that I bought a house from, he works for property management and he just called me one day and was like, yo, we got a sectional. And I went and picked it up, So property managers, storage unit people, they'll call you if they have storage units that didn't sell at an auction if you want some good first dibs on things. But you're absolutely right, Charles. Freeing yourself from the chains of Facebook because you could be axed, so to speak, at any moment. There is that real anxiety that, oh, what happens if I get reported on Facebook for being a scammer? Somebody in Canada thinks I'm a scammer, and all of a sudden my Facebook doesn't have access to Marketplace, right? And that's something that you can actually read about on Reddit and stuff like that. Yeah, you'll have to start a new account, but like, hey, you just lost all this feedback that you've had. You lost access to any groups that you've had too. So I really think that you're brilliant by just, inspiring people to kind of free themselves from the chains of Facebook, because you're totally right, dude. You are at the mercy of the gods of the Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah, well, it's important to know what you want out of it. And if it's just a side hustle for you, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. After reflecting on our conversation a bit, I think the probably most important thing to come out of our chat is having a flipper mindset, or this entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to create value for people where there is none pre-existing, recognizing that there's an opportunity to buy low, sell high, connect consumers with supply that they want, and to also, help people who are in need of liquidating some inventory, getting some stuff out of their house, an outlet for doing so. That's spotting an opportunity and taking advantage of it. And, if you are able to create value in this way, it's not limited to video games. It's not limited to couches. It's not limited to teaching. It's the integration of all of these different aspects of your life and using that to create a strong financial foundation for yourself. And that's exactly what you've done, right? You've pursued a variety of different interests and hobbies and side hustles over the past 10 years in conjunction with your full-time teaching gig. And you've leveraged that extra income into some rental properties and paying off your mortgage and just kind of setting your family straight. And that's, I think, an important story to learn from. It's like, maybe you don't have to build the biggest couch flipping business in the world, but know what you want to get out of it and definitely develop the skill set as doing these flips. And that skill set is going to carry over into other aspects of your life. So it's really important to cultivate this flipper mindset and this flipper skill set, because it's going to serve you well in other areas of your life.
No, the mindset and the anxiety. So for couches, it's not like you can just go from flipping video games to couches, right? As you said, couches are considerably bigger than video games. It connects back to what we were saying about like having to pay for the Ivy Flip app, right? It's something that it's an expense that builds your profit, right? It took me some getting used to renting a storage unit. Like my wife wasn't too happy with me that I was spending like $100 a month to have a storage unit to put furniture in to flip, right? We just never done it before. We'd always used a room in our house, an office, something we can get the home office expense for, you know what I mean? So here I was actually paying almost $100 a month for this one storage unit with the idea of flipping furniture, right? Well, one turns to two turns to three, four, we're up to 6 storage units now that I'm spending $600 a month on, right? And I didn't even have a truck when I got those first 2 storage units, right? A little nugget here would be that every car and every SUV has a tow capacity, and I'm not a mechanic by any means, right? I went through school to be a teacher. I figured out that my RAV4 that I used to have had a tow capacity of 1,500 pounds. And for flipping couches, the anxiety of having to pay this overhead for storage units and how do I move these big pieces of furniture, it took me kind of like thinking about how do I break these barriers, right? So I got over spending money on storage units, and then I had to figure out how to transport. Well, an SUV can normally tow like 1,500 pounds. So I got a tow kit put on the bottom of my RAV4, and then I bought a $500 utility trailer. It was like a 5x8, and on non-rainy days, I was able to strap a couch on there, strap 2 couches on there, and that became my method of madness, so to speak. Every car, I've even seen people towing a utility trailer with like a sedan, like a Tesla or a Prius could actually tow a utility trailer, because, these are skills that you just don't know. A utility trailer, I've actually flipped trailers before for good cash. So if you want another idea of what to flip utility trailers, okay? Be careful with dealership limits and everything, but anyway, it's another nugget. Aluminum utility trailers only weigh like 400 pounds. You can pick them up, move them with your hands. So if your towing capacity is 1,500 pounds on your Prius, I'm using some really bad examples here, but whatever. That's like bottom of the barrel, 1,500 pounds, that's all you can tow. Even if you get a 5x8 utility trailer, that's 400 pounds. You can still put another 600 pounds on there. And how much does a couch weigh? Like maybe 200, 300 pounds when all is said and done. So logistically, if you have a vehicle and if you have space to store a 5x8, a 4x6 utility trailer, I mean, I think a 4x6 would do just fine. With $400 down, $200 to get the tow kit put on, and the trust in yourself to do well, you too can have the ability to transport couches back and forth. Snow is a factor here in Vermont. In April, I decided to trade in my RAV4 to get a Tacoma, right? And I dropped like $4,000 to get a 6x10 enclosed trailer. The extra height. The extra height's important because you can actually stand up a French door refrigerator, which are great flips, by the way, if you can get them for free. And that has been a life changer. Tacomas are great, reliable trucks. Enclosed trailers allow you to use them year round. Another little nugget that I always make sure to do is when you have an enclosed trailer, the 205 75 R15, I think they are. Trailer tires can be bought at Tractor Supply for like $200 a piece. All you have to do is get a small little kit and you can change the tires like every 6,000 miles. I drive like 20,000 miles a year picking up furniture. So I change my tires on my trailer like every 3 or so months. Okay. Something that you really have to be aware of when you're doing this and you're wanting to take it seriously, because trailer tires, they do get worn a lot quicker than car tires. They're just not made for that kind of distance. And once you learn these logistical challenges and you get comfortable changing the tires by yourself, like I learned how to do it. You just get a jack, you jack it up, you grab an impact driver and you go boom, boom, boom. Everyone says use an impact wrench, but I don't think you have to use an impact wrench. That's not financial or mechanical advice. Don't take any advice I have. Literally. But I have been good up to this point. And having the enclosed trailer, I've now gotten up to 6 storage units, and I can show up at someone's house and get their sectional, and they're like, the extra height actually allows you to put a second sectional right on top of it, right? I can now go to someone's house, grab their couch, and they're like, oh yeah, I got this fridge, I got this, this and that, air conditioners. Pick up your air conditioners because they sell like hotcakes in the summer, okay? Spend all winter getting them. You can sell them for $50 a piece. Portables go for $200 a piece. More nuggets, right? But learning these logistical things really open the door. And I've heard people mention this on your podcast, Charles. I live in a very rural area, right? And I heard you mention a thing called geo arbitrage one time, and I fell in love with that term. I've obviously heard of like retail arbitrage because I sometimes have to drive down to Albany, New York, which is 2.5 hours away from me. And that's where I can fill up my 6x10 trailer and come back to Vermont and really, you get the good stuff down in Albany, because there's just no supply of used couches here in Vermont. There really isn't. There's only like 600,000 people in the state. Albany has 1 million people just in a small compact area. You see what I'm saying? So I don't go small to big, I go big to small, if that makes any sense. But right now I'm currently seeing how many couches I need to sell, have that couch currency going to buy a 20-foot trailer so that on Saturdays I can start driving down to Albany and using, this is 100% genuine, he hasn't paid me $1, to use the Ivy Flip app to just hang around in Albany like I used to do with video games, right, back in 2018, to fill up a 20-foot trailer, which is going to cost me around $7,000 to $8,000 to get what? How many trailers? If I can put 2.5 sectionals in my 6x10, I could probably put 5.5, maybe 6 sectionals in a 20 by 8 trailer. And I was talking about vehicle weight earlier, and I really think that the logistics is probably the biggest barrier to entry for the anxiety, right? My Tacoma, if you're buying a truck, make sure you get one that can tow at least 6,500 pounds. There's a few different models, because if you get an aluminum enclosed trailer, they normally weigh about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, okay? So if your Tacoma can pull 6,500 pounds of weight, and the average sectional weighs like 300 pounds, with a 20-foot trailer, your Tacoma could absolutely pull it. You don't need to spend up and get a Tundra, so you save that gas money there, right? But you could have a 20-foot trailer on your Tacoma, even though it can only pull 6,500 pounds. And these are just logistical things that I really, really, really think it would be worth spending the time to get into on this channel, just so that people understand the barriers to entry that can be easily overcome. And I think that once more people start to realize the barrier to entry is really not that difficult to get into. You know what I'm saying? You just got to get a truck, look at the towing limits, find a $6,000 to $7,000 monster trailer, and you're in business, dude. Personally, myself right now, I've been touring warehouses to see if I can find a bigger spot. I've seen some of the people that you've had on have mentioned like staging, and I really want to see, because Charles, like when I get a couch, if I can make $300 on that couch, that's great. That's phenomenal. If I can drive an hour and a half, like there and back, 45 minutes one way drive home, clean it up a little bit, take pictures of it, use Canva to make nice backgrounds on it and stuff, and sell it for $300, that's a win for me. $100 an hour is a win for me. And if I can do that, I feel great about it, But because of the channel, I've been wanting to see what kind of upselling, so to speak, I could do. Not to go crazy. I know I'm not going to get people but paying $1,500 for a used couch. It's not going to happen here. That is okay. Definitely not as much money in rural Vermont as there is in like Manhattan, right? So understanding your market is really important, apart from the logistical part, right? And finding what price points make you feel like you're, doing well with your time. Like my daily rate as a teacher, your daily rate as a teacher is like how much you're paid per day. And before taxes, I make like $380 or so dollars per day as a teacher. Then you take taxes out of that, you take union costs, healthcare, all that stuff, and I make like maybe $250 per day as a teacher. So for me, if I can make $300 on this couch that I buy and I sell, like, dude, it's a day of work, a day of lesson planning, a day of making kids feel like I'm the most evil human being in the world because I want them to stay in class and not leave 14 times to go to the bathroom, right? There's just not as much decision making that needs to be done with that couch. And fatigue is a big thing in the teaching world. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think there were some really great tidbits in this last segment that will be helpful for people who are maybe on the fence about getting into the game or not sure where to start. These are very practical considerations. Really, you need some space to store the couches, and you need a way to move the couches around. And some tenacity and the motivation to work hard. And you can get started flipping couches. And as you think about the path to upgrading, yeah, you can start with your car, put a tow kit on it, get a trailer. If you want to get a truck, that'll increase your capacity. Generally, when I see couch flippers make these kinds of investments in more space, more towing capacity, more moving capacity in general, these tend to pay off. And sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So for example, you have 6 storage units and you upgrade to a warehouse, you'll find that it's not just a matter of the square footage in the storage units, it's about having a space where you can showcase your goods, do better staging, take better photos, show customers the different kinds of inventory that you have available, and just generally be more efficient in how you're operating. And that's going to pay dividends far beyond, just the square footage. But hey, Brian, we are well over time at this point.
Oh, yeah. I could talk for days, man. It's
covered a lot of good topics here. Yeah, so it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah.
I hope to see you again on the Couch Pod.
Yeah, man. It was great meeting you. And if you ever get a few minutes and you want to chat couches, let me know. I'm always willing to just chat. If you ever need some ideas for other little shorts to do on the channel about like just the most random thing, like how to check the tow capacity on your car, let me know. I really appreciate you letting me be on.
Thank you, Brian. Have a good night.